Hey everybody, welcome to Storywise. I am today going to be reviewing the last book that I finished, which is The Six by Anni Taylor. This book is the first book I've read that has a multiple POV. This is told through, I guess it would be four different eyes if you want to say it that way. There's one that, as you go on, it makes more sense. Well, never mind. Again, we try to keep it spoiler free here, so almost got into one there. Six is essentially a book about troubled people who get brought to an island to rehab through challenges that are supposed to be, sort of this transformational exercise, but something is amiss, right? It's not going to go that way. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a big old novel. So first, the reaction that I have for my first ever POV read, I was nervous to do this because I didn't know if I'd be able to keep track of who people were. In fact, I was able to keep track of who people were. I found myself not caring about any of the periphery characters, only the main character, Evie, who is actually on the island, not the different family members. I really just didn't like jumping away from Evie's story and then going into her husband or Constance, and I felt like it took me out of it. But then I was thinking, I'm sticking with it. Is this just how it goes? Because there's no single story that's going to satisfy everyone. There's no single storytelling method that's going to satisfy everyone. So I'm not going into it saying, well, if I don't like this, then I'm just going to quit. No. But I found myself asking, am I going to like it? Is it going to change? Is just one of those things that it takes some steam to get rolling? You got to put up with some of this other stuff with these periphery characters because they'll become relevant later. It's showing how they get from point A to point B. And if I don't have that, is that going to screw me up later? And I think it would have. So it does pay off. It just took a long time. And I would say I found myself at around page 90, somewhere in there, before I started to care about the periphery character story. And maybe that's how it had to be. I really don't know, but it's one of those things that I struggle with in my own writing. Would I find it amazing if I'm doing it? Or because I don't like reading it, is that not going to be something I would enjoy writing? And you write the story that you want to enjoy. That's what I'm applying to myself, is not the story that I want to read, but the story I want to write and enjoy writing. I'm going to write that story, and hopefully there's an audience for it. Just like this, I am an audience for this. I did enjoy this book. It was just certain elements of it lost me. And that's so far, almost every book loses me in some element. It's just the amount of time I spent lost is a lot smaller in other books. This had a bigger chunk that I was lost in, and that was the periphery characters. And when I was reading it, I was worried that it was going to be like Squid Games. There was a lot of elements that gave me that vibe. And I was like, which one came first? And this book, The Six, is made in 2017. And I believe Squid Games came out in 2021. So there's pre-production and I get all that. But I don't think there was really a crossover. It was just because I'd seen Squid Games season 1 and 2 before I read this book. I thought like, oh, is this going to give me that same experience? And I kind of wonder, what would this have been like had I not seen Squid Games? Because I felt like it, even if it was true or not, it gave me spoilers. I had to read the book to find out if it truly did. But in my head, I was already gearing up for, oh, well, this is why we're doing this. This is why we're in this person's point of view. This is why we're in this person's point of view, because it's all going to come together. And it's important because that's what Squid Games did. You have the players, you have the family members or the police that are, having their own experience trying to get to the island to find these missing people or the missing brother. And so this had that same feeling to it. So that might be like a selling point if you like Squid Games and you haven't read this book. Maybe you'll like this book. Another area that lost me was the challenges. So on this island over here, actually, let me pivot. The other part that threw me was every time I looked at this cover before I opened it, for some reason I thought of the show Lost. This isn't at all Lost, but it was the sea, it was the island, and some of the promotional images I think had a vague reference to an island in the background, a lot of water, and then the cast standing there. So it really made me think of that. But getting into the challenges of the book that I had were literally the challenges. One of them was the challenges they had to go through every night on this 6-day retreat to, advance or be eliminated. And the interesting part is, if you look at this kind of gateway that you're looking through, this tunnel is a hexagon, and each room in this place, the whole island, is set up like hexagonally. So it was like this spiritual kind of thing that everything's in a hexagon. There's a whole cult element and all this stuff. So I didn't know what that was until I read the book. And now I get, oh, okay, so there's a hexagon. It's conjuring that. And there's other imagery that you can pick up on the cover that makes sense after you're done. But initially I was like, is this a book like Lost? But the reason I didn't like the challenges is they didn't seem like they really did anything for me. Not that they weren't complicated, but it felt like all of a sudden someone just knew something, and it was designed to play to someone's strength in the group. So everyone had a challenge they might be better at than other people. And I'm sure, either that's how they set up the challenges, is so someone could shine and someone else could fail. But the challenges weren't that interesting to me. I mean, there was a time clock, so there was a ticking down effect, and it's like, oh, it's supposed to ramp up anxiety, but I never got anxious about it. It was just kind of like, well, what's this challenge? Okay, not that interesting. And sometimes confusing. So I'm not going to give into spoilers of why that is. I just didn't feel a sense of urgency. I didn't feel the gravity of the challenge. They just kind of seemed weird to me, with this like hexagonal podium and twisting things or whatever. And then sometimes it was outside of that. And anyway, none of the puzzles worked for me. And that's okay, because that wasn't the bulk of the novel. That was actually a pretty small portion of the novel, is the actual challenges. It's everything that happened outside of it. So I'm not going to knock it for that. I'm just saying that was a struggle that I had, where I wasn't excited for what the next challenge was, but that's how I started the book, was excited to see what the challenges were. Maybe because I watched Squid Games, and the challenges were, in my opinion, one of the better parts of the show. Not that the whole show didn't have elements that were strong. I just really look forward to what's the next challenge going to be. And I didn't get that with this after the first challenge. Another element of the book is this has short chapters, and it's, a 400-page book. So it's not small by any means, but it reads so fast. I don't know if it's the formatting of the pages, but you can tell that there's a lot of white space on these pages. So you're cruising through certain things like this, and the chapters are so short. Some of them are 2 pages, 3 pages long. So when I get to see a new chapter, I feel a sense that I'm speeding through something. So this book was wonderfully paced for that, for like my mental capacity, my motivation, my sense of achievement and accomplished, that I was churning through this book. Even if, let's say, I read 50 pages a day in any book that I read, that's usually my goal. This one, even if I read 50 pages, I felt like I read more and was covering more ground, and it was very satisfying that way. In fact, I did probably read more than 50 pages a day, because it was so easy, and there was so much white space that I was able to get through a page. In the book I'm reading now, it's about 2.5 minutes per page it takes me to get through. This book felt like 1.5 minutes per page. It was flying through, and I appreciated that. The back of the book says, a dark, slow burn serial killer story that dazzles with an explosive ending. That, if you read that, what does it tell you? Serial killer is going to be involved somehow. How is that going to be involved? Okay. Explosive ending. It's not even denying the ending of the book. And I'm like, if it doesn't blow up at the end, was that a misdirect? If it does blow up, don't you just give away the ending of the book on the back of your book? It's not even before you get to the description. It's just like, oh, with an explosive ending, so something's going to blow up. And explosive can mean, it's an adjective for, oh, this is crazy, like, wow, lots of energy and fighting and stuff. But I didn't like that it almost gave away the ending, or it felt like it did. So I felt like I already knew, even though I didn't know. And I'm not confirming or denying what that means, but conceptually you could see where giving that, I just questioned why they wrote that on the back of it. Now, to be said, with that knowledge of like, oh, it's going to be an explosion, I know it's going to explode, the last 100 pages, I would say, approximately, I couldn't put it down. Like, that was such a rush of action, and it was done wonderfully. But you spent 300 and some pages, and then the last 100 are like, we're flying now, like really intense stuff. And I still wonder if books need to be that long, or if they could shrink some of it and it would just be a more fun read for me. But that might be my style. There's some books out there that I'm excited to read, like Red Rising, I think, is one that people talk about like that a lot. A lot of action and a lot of movement. I'm excited to read that one. But this slow burn, it was only slow because of jumping out of stories and trying to bring everyone up to speed, and on the people who weren't Evie, who weren't on the island. Everything else felt fast to me. It didn't feel slow. It was just having to jump away and look at all these other people. And on that last day, I definitely didn't read 50 pages. I read the whole 100 because it was just get it done, because you don't want to put it down. And that's a rare thing in books. The last thing I'll say is, unless I'm mistaken, this is another self-published book, which is super impressive. And what I mean by that is maybe the writing isn't phenomenal and like that's really impressive, like give this person an award, give Annie an award. I just mean it's impressive that I see people doing this, going in self-publishing and being successful. I don't know how many this sold, but it's a good book. And it was on review channels and it was on lists and things that I found and put it on my list. And that's like a dream come true. I don't know if I'll ever get an agent. I don't know if I'll ever get a book publisher. I don't know if I will write a book good enough like The Six to get self-published and have enough people want it that it wouldn't cost me money, that I would actually break even. And so when I see people doing that, it gives me hope, and I'm proud of them. Like, that is such an incredible feat and an exciting change in the industry. And she did it. This is a successful book. And when I say successful, I don't know about money, but it's wonderfully written. It might not be everything I want a book to be, but enough of it was in there that it's on my top list. I think I mentioned this in the past. When I finish a book, I put it on the shelf back here. And if it's on the shelf in that position, it's in my top all time. I haven't read a ton of books in my lifetime, so it's not that huge of a list. So making it on the top 10 or however many fit onto the bookshelf, I'm not saying it's the whatever your favorite book is, it's beating it out. No, I'm saying right now it earned a spot on there, and that has beaten out several books. So where it's at now, it'd be in my top 20. So that's a good thing. That means I like this book. It beat out a couple of my Stephen King books. It beat out Kings of the Wild and The Tainted Cup. And that's some impressive writers that, Annie Taylor, in my experience, beat out in this specific novel. There is another Stephen King book that's outranked to this one, but still, that's me saying I really enjoyed this book. And I think you will too, if you have any interest in more of a thriller that's not reliant on poetry and is more reliant on the religious aspects of cult and addiction. And if you like the Squid Games, this is a good book for that. It falls short of the Squid Games in certain areas, but I don't know that I would like to read the Squid Games. Anyway, I had a good time with this book. It was not a waste of time. And if you're at all interested in anything I said here, it's going to be a good one for you to check out too. So hopefully you'll pick it up. And if you do, let me know. And if you've read it, let me know what you think. So until next time, journey well, my friends.